right, welcome to Independence Today, yay! I'm Maria, the IL specialist here at CRI, and this is
Rob Coker, and I'm the founder of Independence Today, and we are honored to have as our guest Carl Berry, the Executive Director of Community Resources for Independence.
yes.
Well, thank you both for having me. I appreciate it very much being here.
You bet. And Carl, we have some really important stuff to talk about today in terms of the disability community and their needs, basically. And so, kick it off.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sure. There's three main areas that I'd like folks to be aware of as it applies to services supporting people with disabilities. Those three areas are what's going on in the state with personal assistance service rates, what's going on with Medicaid budget in general, with the federal Medicaid budget, and also what is going on with the Administration for Community Living, which is part of the Department of Health and Human Services in Washington. So I'm going to start with the personal assistance service rates here in Pennsylvania. About 400,000 people in Pennsylvania rely on in-home care.
Yes.
This is a significant portion of our population who would rather live in their own homes, their own communities, participate in their own communities, rather than having no choice but to live in an institutional type of setting. In-home care works. It's significantly less expensive than nursing home placement. A lot of folks would prefer to live in their own homes. It's a higher quality of life they perceive. And we learned during the pandemic that we just simply do not have enough beds in nursing homes to, well, basically house everybody
Right,
that needed to be. Problem is, Pennsylvania has not been funding attendant care, personal assistance services chronically. It's been chronically bad for at least 20 years. There was a rate study done in 2012 by the state. Community Resources for Independence met with the folks doing the study, gave them information about what does it cost to provide these services in-home. We were one of many, but we were happy to participate and give real costs. What does it cost to provide reliable, high-quality services to people with disabilities? That resulted in a 2% increase. That was 2010, and the increase went into place in 2012. Since that time, since 2012 to present, the rates have gone up only 3 times at a rate of, well, it's been about $1.90. That's been the increase over the past 10 years. In that same 10 years, the cost of actually providing the service has gone up 44%. So the increase was just about shy of 10%, but the increase in the cost of providing the service was 44%.
Yeah, that doesn't work.
So, quite frankly, a lot of providers are either barely at break even or they're upside down.
Right. Yeah.
Trying to provide services to people with disabilities. And things, quite frankly, have become much more challenging with the managed care companies put into place here. For example, in what budget year was that? 2022, the state awarded the managed care companies an additional $928 million extra dollars added to the previous year's Community Health Choices budget line item. In other words, it's not 928 million, it was 928 million more dollars.
Okay.
Not a penny of that trickled down to CRI, any other provider like CRI, and most importantly, didn't get down to our direct care workers.
Do you have thoughts about the main reason why that happened?
Yeah, I can tell you exactly why that
Okay.
happened, because I went to the 3 managed care companies and said, hey, congratulations on winning an additional $928 million. Let's talk about having a rate increase, because you said that the increase was due to the increased cost of providing care to the participants in the Community Health Choices program. We're providing care to the individuals in the Community Health Choices program. And all 3 said to me, I'd love to help you, but the rates that we pay providers like CRI is based on 100% of the Medicaid fee-for-service schedule. That Medicaid fee-for-service schedule did not change, so we're not going to change the rate that we pay you. If you want to get that Medicaid fee-for-service schedule changed, go talk to the state.
Yeah.
So, me being me, I went to the state, the leadership of the Office of Long-Term Living, and said, I was told to come talk to you. And the Office of Long-Term Living's response was, well, now rate negotiations are between the PAS, individual PAS provider and the individual managed care companies. Go talk to them.
It's just a lot of.
A lot of runaround.
Yeah,
So
it's just a
I
lot
got
of back and
that,
forth,
and
yeah.
now the governor has proposed for the 2025-2026 budget another increase, excuse me, to the community health choices line item of an additional $938 million more dollars. Why? Because the managed care company says that they have an increased cost for providing services to participants in the community health choices program. Our direct care workers are one of those costs,
Yeah,
and
of course.
we need to see some of that 938 million proposed extra dollars come our way.
Yeah.
What's interesting is, I mentioned a rate study done by the Office of Long-Term Living in 2012. I met last year with the Secretary of the Budget, Ari Munson, and asked for a rate increase then. Didn't get that, but I said, at the very least, we need to do a rate study. It wasn't just me, there was lots of people at different meetings saying we need a rate study. We did get a rate study out of it. So in September of last year, the Office of Long-Term Living launched a rate study, and we were told that the information was complete in December, actually complete in November, and was being used to inform the governor's budget ask. Well, come February 4th, the governor makes his budget proposal speech, releases his proposed budget, and there's no mention in there about attendant care, personal assistance service providers, their direct care workers, and increase. There was mention about a small increase for participant-directed caregivers, but the thing that's hidden kind of in the weeds there is, of all the people who are receiving attendant care in Pennsylvania, that's only 10% are on the participant-directed model. 90%. 90% of the participants use agencies,
Right.
just like Community Resources
Right.
for Independence, and we were, I believe, intentionally omitted from the governor's budget proposal. It looks good, hey, I'm looking out for the direct care workers, but that's,
But they're not listening to you.
Yeah.
but it's
They're
only
saying,
6
"Hey."
of the caregivers
Yeah.
in Pennsylvania, only 6% of the caregivers are working under the participant-directed model.
And then what
I
about
think-
the rest of the people?
And I think they're oversimplifying, they don't really understand the complexities
Yeah.
of what we had at that meeting,
Mhm.
yeah.
That's crazy.
So we have been advocating for a rate increase for quite some time because, quite frankly, our direct care workers and the rest of the staff at CRI and other agencies like CRI, they damn well deserve it.
Sure they
Plain
do.
and simple. It's hard work, it's professional work, they do the best they can. And the issue that we're running into, which was absolutely, well, let me back up a little bit. So February 4th, the budget comes out, no mention about that. Later in February, as me and a number of other individuals are preparing a Freedom of Information Act type of information request to get that actual study, the governor's office, the Office of Long-Term Living, does release that study. And what's interesting is that study looked at the rates being paid to provider organizations in 3 different ways. One, what are the actual costs? Are the costs actually too dang close or even above what the rates are being paid now? Second thing they looked at is, what are the wages that personal assistance service providers can provide to their direct care workers compared to other industries that are drawing from the same labor pool? Sheetz, Walmart, Wawa, Target, those other places that a person who could be a caregiver might get a different job at. And the last thing they looked at was, well, what are states around Pennsylvania paying for similar services? And wouldn't you know it, OLTL's own study says that no less than a 23% increase in rate is needed, required, justified, just to break even with the cost of providing the service. Wouldn't you know it that when the state looks at, based on Bureau of Labor Statistics information, what a direct care worker could make in another field, leave the caregiving field and go work at a cash register or something like that, it justifies no less than a 23% increase. Surprise, surprise. And when the state, the Office of Long-Term Living's consulting company, Mercer Consulting, looked at what do the contiguous states, those states around Pennsylvania that touch Pennsylvania, what do they pay? Pennsylvania is paying $20.63 on average per hour for the service. Out of that, we need to pay our direct care workers, provide benefits, provide the mandatory things like workers' comp, unemployment insurance, provide supervision, provide training, provide pay for travel time, provide pay for other required work time. When you look at the states around Pennsylvania, Pennsylvania pays $20.63 currently. We're the lowest of every state surrounding Pennsylvania. West Virginia, at 1/3 the tax base of Pennsylvania, pays almost $6 more an hour.
That's incredible. Yeah.
West Virginia knows what they're doing. They just changed their rates because they recognize that something needs to happen.
Right.
Ohio, which is right across the border from several of our offices, those direct care workers can go right across the border to work in Ohio, is paying more than $8 an hour to their providers. And those providers can turn around and pay their direct care workers more. Maryland, higher. Delaware, higher. New Jersey, higher.
Yeah.
New York State, not New York City, New York State. And I'm talking Cattaraugus County, I'm talking Chautauqua County, I'm talking right across the border from our Wellsboro office, right across the border from our Warren office, right across the border from our Erie office, is paying their providers $16 more an hour. That's 75% more. So
Why are we
looking at
not doing what other states are doing?
Looking at the states around Pennsylvania, it justifies no less than a 23, actually it's 28% increase to catch up to the average of the states around us.
I have a friend who's also an attendant. He works at McClellan, and his nephew, he's not doing it anymore, but his nephew was working the night shift at Walmart, stocking shelves, making $17.50 an hour.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, what Walmart can do is they can pay their, trust me, Walmart's not gonna pay their employees a penny more than they have to.
Right.
But when they have to, in order to fill those positions, they can turn around and charge their customers more in their prices to pass that cost on.
Yeah.
Compare that to the Medicaid attendant care types of programs. Our customer is the state and of course their managed care companies.
Right.
We don't have the ability to say, well, I gotta pass on a cost increase to you. We have to ask for one. So how did we get this bad? You had mentioned, Maria. I'm gonna start by saying that the attendant care program, Community Health Choices program, I should say, Community Health Choices program is the largest part of the Office of Long-Term Living's state budget. Office of Long-Term Living, in turn, is the largest part of the Department of Human Services in Pennsylvania, the largest part of their budget. And the largest part of Pennsylvania's budget is the Department of Human Services. So Community Health Choices is the largest part of the largest part of the largest part of the state budget. What does that mean? My view on that is that means there's a great opportunity to actually save some money by promoting in-home care rather than nursing home care.
Yes.
But unfortunately, this is a theory, when legislators look at how much it's going to cost to provide an increase, the largest part of the largest part of the largest part, some legislators may be tempted to look at it to say, gosh, if I vote for that, I'm not going to get reelected. That's going to be too big of an increase. So I'm going to kick the can down the road. Maybe someone else will have to deal with this later when I'm not in office. So that's how we got to this part, is the can getting kicked down the road year after year after year. I mentioned in the past 10 years there's been 3 increases. One of those was because of COVID, with the federal money, with the federal government providing money and mandating that there be a rate increase. So technically the state's only voluntarily done 2 increases. They've only paused, and those 2 increases were 2% or less each. So we are now hurting because of a chronic, well, bury our head in the sands and let the problem hopefully go by. 23% is a huge ask. That is absolutely a lot to ask of our budget. However, when we look at the hidden costs of not supporting in-home care, it costs a lot more to provide care for a person in their nursing home.
And this is not new. Trying to get politicians to understand that fact has been going on for God knows how long. And we talked about this a little bit before the show, that the disability community does not exactly strike fear in the hearts of politicians. You know, they don't usually say that, oh boy, if we really make the disability community mad, I may not get elected. Yeah, I don't think
That's not like a
anybody
major
who don't
concern
say
for
that,
them,
because when you think about demographics, okay, they always mention Hispanics and blacks and you know, all these, but I never hear the disability demographic. I never hear that. So I mean, that's got to be part. I mean, that's part of the problem.
Well, Rob, we were talking about this earlier, and I do think that the disability community is a victim of its own success. It's a phrase I used earlier, and I've used it other times as well. So what does that mean? It means that several decades ago, people fought like hell to get the Americans with Disabilities Act and a number of other laws passed. There was years of intense advocacy across the entire country. Since that time, a number of programs were put into place to serve people with disabilities, including the Community Health Choices program and its predecessors. And I think what's happened is a lot of folks have either forgotten about the amount of advocacy and effort that went into winning those rights. Remember, disability rights are civil rights. Or people with disabilities are new to the disabilities and never actually had to fight for those.
Right.
Part of our success has been organizations like Community Resources for Independence and a number of other centers for independent living. There's a number of advocacy agencies that do work very hard behind the scenes to protect civil rights, protect disability rights, try to get funding for these programs, try to have laws passed that support people with disabilities, so that those folks who do have the disabilities don't have to do it themselves.
Right.
I do think that we are now, unfortunately, realizing that we need to have more people with more voices speaking up to their legislators and explaining, I use attendant care.
Yes.
I rely on attendant care. I'm not cheating the system. I use just a few hours of attendant care a day to get up out of bed, get a warm meal, get dressed, and get on with my participating in my community.
It helps me be independent.
Right.
Yeah.
It keeps me out of nursing homes.
Right.
Now, I was mentioning some hidden costs, some of the other hidden costs of not having attendant care, not just nursing home placement, but attendant care keeps me out of the emergency room.
Yes.
Attendant care keeps me out of the hospital, the rehab hospital. It keeps me alive. And frankly, we need people speaking up and saying, attendant care is important to me.
Yes. And the thing about, you mentioned the ADA, it's not like the fight stopped in 1990. Okay, all of these different organizations and companies didn't say, okay, we're happy as heck to jump in and make all our places accessible. No, no, no. The fight went on
Right,
long
yes.
after
Mhm.
that.
Yeah.
And there's, why don't you remind people, Carl, if you will, how they can do that? How can they get involved? How can they let their local, state representatives, whoever, know about what they're concerned about?
Certainly. We're going to be putting into the doobly-doo down below in the YouTube videos.
Do we do?
The
Okay.
comments and
All right.
stuff.
What it's called.
Okay.
Yeah.
Some links for people to be able to easily and quickly reach out to their legislators. There's a number of services available that will look up who is your legislators, state legislators if it's a state issue, federal legislators if it's federal, based on your address. And these services will provide some pre-written emails if you're not feeling verbose yourself. But if you are, and Rob, I know you would be, you're well-spoken, you could write your own email there and it will forward the email to the recipients on your behalf. So for the issue of personal assistance service rates, we'll be providing a link to the Pennsylvania Homecare Association, who's partnered with the Pennsylvania Association for Home and Community-Based Services on rate advocacy.
And another thing that you could do, and people don't really think about this, you can create your own petitions. You can put on your computer at the top of the page, this is what people who get this service, whatever, we're concerned, we're upset, and have a whole bunch of people sign it and mail it to whoever, Mike Kelly, Dave McCormick, whoever it is, Ryan Bizzarro, whatever. Yes, there's all kinds of ways you can get involved. Yeah.
So let's actually take this up a notch just a little bit. Sending an email is good. Many, many voices make a great shout. Even better than that would be contacting your, in this case, it's a state issue, so you would be contacting your state representative, you would be contacting your state senator and saying, I'd like to talk to you about the attendant care program. I'd like to talk to you about how important it is to me, and I want to talk to you specifically about how important my direct care workers are, and prove to you that this is a worthwhile program. Ask to meet with your legislators.
Absolutely.
You might not get every meeting. Believe me, you don't get every meeting, but it's noted.
You'll get a representative,
Yeah.
somebody.
You'll get someone from the office that will get the information, but if you do get the meeting with your legislator, take it. Even if it's just to say, I just want to explain to you and put the human side on this issue.
Yes.
It's not just dollars, we're talking people. And the two most important people in that dollar equation are the participant and the caregiver.
Yes.
So, after that, I would say that it's the support staff, like for example at CRI, but the two most important are the caregivers and the consumers. The legislators need to understand what in-home care is and can do for people. And that's where you'll come into play. They can listen to me talk about facts and figures, and I show my graphs and give all the details every year, but
They need to hear from them.
they need to hear it from people who use the service.
And even if you just do emails, they will get back to you. I've gotten a response from all of my emails, so.
That's good.
So, Community Resources for Independence will have a number of our support staff in Harrisburg on Wednesday, April 9th for an advocacy day with the Pennsylvania Home Care Association and PAHCBS, meeting with legislators to try to drive home the need for proper funding for the attendant care, for the Community Health Choices program, and by God, adjust that Medicaid fee-for-service schedule so that the managed care companies are required to trickle down that money to providers like CRI so we can pay our direct care workers and our support staff appropriate wages.
And I think one other thing that goes ignored, I mean, if you're someone with a disability and you're independent through attendant care, you can get a job, either part-time, full-time, we pay taxes just like anyone else
Yes, we do,
does. So that's helping the community, it's helping the government, you know? So,
Yeah, I agree.
so yeah, I mean, it's something that the people don't think about, and they don't think about because not enough of us are doing what Carl referred to.
Right, yes.
Reaching out and making noise,
Mhm.
okay? The squeaky wheel gets the grease.
Right.
So, yeah,
I agree with that.
all right.
So there's two other issues that I wanted to also bring up
Mhm.
during our conversation today, and it's hot in the news. A lot of folks know about it. One of the issues is potential, looks like likely Medicaid budget cuts at the federal level. And something that a number of folks might not be really aware of, but maybe tangentially thought this might be coming. And that is the federal administration making some changes to the Department of Health and Human Services. So let's start with Medicaid cuts. The administration has said that they want to cut $880 billion, that's billion with the B, dollars out of the Medicaid budget. However, as we sit here today, we don't have full detail about what's going to be cut. My own concern is, yes, Medicaid services for people with disabilities, like in-home and community-based services, makes a hell of a lot of sense. But my concern is, would the baby be thrown out with the bathwater?
Right, yeah.
Would it be too easy for legislators to accidentally overlook the benefits of in-home care?
Yeah.
And this is where I think the disability community, which by the way is comprised of every single individual with a disability
Of course.
and their family
Yep.
and the people that care for them, this is another place where every one of us in the disability community can raise our voice to talk with our legislators. Please defend the funding for in-home and community-based services. It works, it makes sense. It is a lower Medicaid expense than the alternative, institutionalization.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It makes sense, but I'm concerned that in something as broad as $888 billion,
Yeah.
Something's gonna get lost in the shuffle. Yeah.
and we don't want to be lost in the shuffle.
Right.
So, fortunately, cooler heads do prevail once they're educated and once they're informed.
Yeah.
So, just like we are providing in the doobly-doo a link to easily reach out to your state representatives, what we're talking now is federal Medicaid. So we will have links for defending against Medicaid budget cuts, and the link will take you to an American Association of People with Disabilities website
Okay.
with an action item. Again, you can put in some of your information and it will identify for you who are your federal senators and representatives. For example, McCormick and Kelly and Fetterman. And it will send emails also to the administration, White House, Department of Human Services, to say, please don't forget about us. We think that in-home and community-based services is a smart use of Medicaid money.
Yes.
17 million people with disabilities rely on Medicaid funding just to do their everyday things, not only for healthcare, but for community-based services. That's a lot of folks.
Yeah.
But 17 million, when we're talking about the entire country, is only a fraction of the population. Likewise, in the Medicaid budget proposal, there's been some proposed work requirements for Medicaid recipients. However, there is a carve-out for people with disabilities. In other words, if folks are on Medicaid, if they're able to work, they need to work in order to continue to receive services.
Yeah.
There is currently the intent of a carve-out for people with disabilities. But our experience has shown that sometimes carve-outs are administratively unfeasible and mistakes happen, and we have seen people with disabilities who can't work lose benefits because the state in that case thought that they should be working when they simply can't. So again, we'll be putting contacts in the video description in the meeting. And then our third item, this is new. Everybody's heard about the Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE, and one of the areas that the administration is looking at is the Department of Human Services. With Secretary Kennedy in place now, they have said they want to do more with less. They want to reduce silos. They want to make the Department of Health and Human Services more efficient. Well, part of the Department of Health and Human Services is the Administration on Community Living, ACL. The Administration on Community Living was put together about 12 years ago, precisely for this reason. Services to people with disabilities, especially those who live in the community. Those services were scattered over lots of different places. Department of Education, Department of Health, there was in other departments. And so the Administration on Community Living was specifically created to pull all those services together, create efficiency, because you didn't have to have bureaucracy and staff and everything like that at all these different places. You combined it all to make those services more efficient. Now our concern is, in the rush to reorganize the Department of Health and Human Services, we're concerned that it looks like the Administration on Community Living might be broken out into multiple different departments, including new departments.
I've seen the chart thing that they sent out,
Mhm.
and it's just so confusing just looking at it.
It really is, yeah.
So our point is, again, we need to speak up. We need to make sure that our legislators, as well as the folks in the administration, know that the Administration on Community Living was created precisely for the reasons that they're espousing the changes now. So again, we're going to be providing links in the description here. Easy to click on, read short article about it. I encourage everybody to get educated about these issues. But the link will take you to a webpage through the National Council on Independent Living, where that will, same kind of thing, based on where you're living, it will provide you with pre-written emails, or you can write your own. And based on where you're living, it'll route those to Secretary Kennedy, it'll send it to the White House, it'll send it to your local legislators, again, federal legislators such as Fetterman, McCormick, and over here in Western Pennsylvania, we have Mike Kelly as our representative.
So it'll go to the right one, depending on your county.
Yeah, if you're someone with a disability, don't take the attitude that someone else will take care of this.
Right, you have to
Okay, it has to be you, okay?
You know, I've said it a couple times in this meeting. I do meet with federal and state legislators. I meet with federal and state administrators. They're used to talking to Carl Berry, bringing out charts, bringing out graphs, bringing out facts, bringing out details. But let's face it, I do not hit home like a person who comes in and says, I use attendant care.
Sure.
This is my direct care worker who's here with me.
Makes it three-dimensional.
And I'm very, very happy to say that we recently met with Senator Dan Laughlin, our state senator here, and accompanying me was one of our board members who uses attendant care, as well as one of our direct care workers. We did a fantastic job driving home the point and winning Dan Laughlin's support. Dan talks to me every year. He knows what I'm going to say. But just the fact that our consumer and our caregiver was there, the entire conversation focused around how can I help you?
Right,
Sure.
Recently, I was interviewed by the USA Today, along with another one of our consumers and another one of our caregivers. How powerful is it to talk to somebody who uses the services as well as talking to the person who chooses to be a caregiver because it means something to them, to mean something to their consumers.
Especially if they say something, hey, I would love to get a job, but I can't if I get stuck in bed because nobody's there to help me out, you know?
Absolutely. So I'm encouraging all of your audience
Yes.
to participate in the letter writing campaign, but take it up a notch. You talked about it's important to send an email, but it's more important to say, hey, I'd like to have a meeting with you, Senator Fetterman or Representative Kelly, or whoever your representative is.
Okay. Well, thank you, Carl. This was very informative, a little bit scary, but hey, it's
But it's
informative.
truthful
But yeah,
and-
you gotta do it. You gotta lay the facts out there.
Yes.
So,
Again, on Wednesday, Community Resources for Independence, several of our leadership will be in Harrisburg advocating specifically for higher reimbursement rates to providers like CRI and every one of them across the entire state, so that we can all turn around and pay our direct care workers and our support staff wages that they deserve. So we can do that in Harrisburg, but I need folks back home continuing that fight.
yes, yes.
Sounds good.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for being on our show. And I want to let everybody know out there that our next show will be on April 25th.
Yes,
It's
yep,
Friday,
yep.
of course. And it's going to be the Ambridge Rose Spa and Salon.
Yes, they're
Boy,
doing
I'm
some cool
feeling-
stuff, so.
I'm feeling comfortable just saying that name.
Well, we'll
I mean,
see what
it's
they have going
yeah,
on,
we'll
it'll
see.
be fun.
Well, thank you, guys.
All right, you guys have a good day. Hold on one second.